And I see the magic QR live information. So thank you all for joining us again after a little break. It's great to still have you with us. Just as a little pitch on behalf of the Hit Games Conference organizers, there are going to be, oh, I can hear myself in another tab. I'm sorry, that's why I've confused myself. Good Lord. Tech. I complained about tech earlier and that it's me breaking the tech. Yes, on behalf of Hit Games Conference, letting you know about some in-person events that they'll be doing later in the year. So the next one coming up is in Istanbul. If you fancy checking that out, it will be in April from the 18th to the 19th. So keep that one in mind. But while we're here and online, I am very happy to pass over to a wonderful panel. We're going to hear about investments in games, so some trends, tips, and market discussion should be pretty juicy. And the lovely Matt is going to moderate this for us. So Matt, without further ado, please take over.
Thanks, Lauren. Appreciate this introduction. Hello, welcome everyone. So let's introduce the speakers from this panel discussion. Guys, if you can give us a quick introduction into who you are, what you are doing, and we can start with you, Teemu.
Fair enough. Thanks for having me. So co-founder, chief product officer at Metaplay. We do free-to-play technology for games. And I've been a studio founder before. We were VC funded with around 8 million euros-ish mobile free-to-play games. And I do some personal investments as well. And we mostly work with VC funded studios, incidentally. So that's my visibility at the moment.
Thanks, Marco.
Yeah, Marco Minoli. I'm a director of publishing at SLITHERINE. We publish strategy games. We've been doing it for 25 years now. So we specialized in this niche in the market that we sort of try to nurture and grow and try and study every day.
Sounds good, Mali.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you for having me today. My name is Mali Baum, serial entrepreneur converted to investor. My first company was deeply into toys and gaming industry, starting with physical toys, converting to an app. And what's very cool back then, 26, 27. Today, I'm also having a company that's called WLOUNGE, and everything I learned, all the mistakes and all the successes, squeezing everything to support also younger generation, connecting corporates with startups and leveraging it to build success stories.
Super, thank you. And Mariusz?
Hello, my name is Mariusz. I work at Google for quite many years. Working with gaming for 6 years. During the work, I work with top Google clients in the gaming industry. I work a lot with this mobile gaming startups, connecting them to investors connecting them to the startups. I was and I am still the angel investor as well in that area. So that's actually kind of my and on the other side. I spend a lot of time with data, or especially around gaming and apps. So that's kind of my connection to those topics.
Amazing. Thank you, guys. We have a really good panelists today. So let's start with the big question, I guess. What are the trends in the gaming sector that you are watching out? And what do you think is the next real big thing? And we can start from the other side. To Mariusz, if you want, you can take the mic.
So I mean, it's very broad topic, of course. So, I think much more is a lot of really happening with the monetization, especially with hybrid monetization. So I think it started from simple a lot of IP heavy genres adopting more and more not invasive ads, especially rewarded videos, and we see that happening even in genres role playing or strategy or casino that were never using that. On the other side, of course, more and more casual genres, even very hyper casual games are trying to adopt some even basic types of IIP to subsidize the revenue. And then on the other side, we see more and more, at least I see that happening, like more and more very traditional brands coming to the ads and coming to the games, where the big difference and big thing coming from that is that they are not so very performance driven, which means that there is much less cannibalization between in-apps and ads in that case. So it's not really different type of monetization, but actually adding quite nice incrementality to this hybrid monetization that we know already. Yeah, I think what sooner or later will be happening, and actually we can see that as well, like especially with the importance and big wave IPs coming to the gaming space as well, that there will be more and more happening between brands and the developers as well, especially once more and more established brands will be coming to that space. I see that Web3 is reviving as well as the topic. Of course, it doesn't have such broad approach as like mobile gaming yet, but still it's just enough to see the wave of some tokens and how they in general the worst time even in that part is behind as well. That's
yeah, guys. Thanks. Guys, you want to add anything?
I could throw in something. So I generally absolutely agree, and I would maybe even take it a step back and say that the key challenge that everybody needs to solve is that obviously it's never been as easy to make a game as it is today, all the platforms, all the technologies, and it's never been as hard as it is today to create a new breakout hit. So then that has a lot of implications, but some of them include there's not a lot of investment into making new breakout hits because it's so unreliable. And number two, there's a lot of pressure in capitalizing more into hits that already exist. So I think that branches out into a lot of different interesting sort of implications on what kind of companies do you do and what do you even look for? I don't know. Do you guys agree, or am I hallucinating this?
Maybe to add actually to what you're saying, I think it's like in this case, mobile gaming. It seems to me it's not so much different in general. I mean, it's very different, but in many cases not so much different from the tech in general. When in general the entry bar is just growing. Yeah, so it doesn't matter if we talk about deep tech or we talk about like tech in general, but we see that in general the entry barrier, the way to create next big thing is just growing. Yes, it's not just enough to be talented student that has nice idea and a lot of energy and enthusiasm to create something big. Yeah, so it requires much more preparation now and that investment as well, of course.
Indeed, and I would argue that at least on all the pitches that I've seen over the past, say, a year, but maybe more to the point 6 months, absolutely 100% on all the platforms have included live ops as a key component into what is being pitched, because you need to capitalize on the game over time. Live ops is one way of doing that, but it emphasizes that if that's what you're going for, then it's no longer going to be a one-man shop doing it in the woods or a student project. That is hard and requires teams and investments, typically at least. So yeah, absolutely. And that has something to do with the advertising market discovery being so poor. So I feel like there's a lot more companies pivoting themselves around very specific market opportunities, whether it's having access to an IP or a very interesting special audience in the sports realm or something else, again, regardless of platforms. That's more important than the creative vision and spark, at least at the moment. But
I would love to add to that, because in one way I'm super related to what you mentioned, and you also, Matt, you asked about the trends. So as an impact investor myself, this is how I address the gaming industry today. When we started and we did like a gamification app for our own product, it was absolutely was like as an extra. as an extra for PR, as an extra for our customers or existing customers. We didn't think even back then how to monetize it as a sole product. But today, it's absolutely touching the social effect. Even if you go to a medical product or you go to HR product, it's all, even like fintech, you know, one brokerage product that I'm part of right now, it's all coming from the gamification, education, I would call it. So it's keeping me very into it. But on another layer, we build a huge community on the WLOUNGE. And now we're even addressing it to NFT in a good way. Yeah, the next generation on NFT, not those that burn out of it. And it all comes from the gamification, understand the communication eventually with your end customer. So these are the trends that I see, because even as a VC, you search for this gamification, the attractiveness of every product, why the users will use this and not something else. And most of the time, the gaming is one of the biggest factor there.
I think that you're absolutely right, Mali. I think that, you know, talking about trends, it's like if the question is about the trends, I can see that there's a lot that goes beyond the, you know, marketplace games and so on. It's about what revolves around that, and there's you know, games being used in all sorts of different aspects in life. And so development of games becomes, you know, the consumer part of, you know, development of a game becomes just one part of a potential business. And I'd see it, Mariusz, you know, we do PC games, and the world of mobile gaming is so different from PC console. It's just like another completely a different world. And I find it still amazing that at shows, you know, gaming shows like Gamescom or such, mobile games are not even present, you know, in some way. It's like really two different worlds. And add to that we're fast moving from user-generated content to AI-generated content. That's a big trend, and we can't avoid, you know, adding that to the system. And everything that revolves around, you know, ads and everything that, you know, stays on top of the game development itself is again going to be driven by AI more and more in the future. So I think that there's a big element there of, you know, looking at trends of the market as a pure consumer sales type, which is, you know, has its strengths, but also looking at a broader picture of, you know, there's many other aspects that revolve around games that have been will be even more important in the future now.
Yeah, I think the combination with AI is also an interesting point, and could be for another panel discussion. So let's come closer to the investment part, and I'm really interested in like what you are evaluating when it comes to investing in the gaming companies, and maybe let's try to focus more really on the development studios and really projects that are building some game rather than like the infrastructure and all the other things. And I can imagine that it really differs based on the stage of the company, right? It will be very different for like pre-seed, seed stage, and very different when the game is live and it's big. So what are your thoughts? And you can pick like the stage of the company depending on which one you are more comfortable with.
I can start here, I guess. I mean, what is the key element here is that for us, and we look at specific type of product, but what we've seen is that over the last 5 years, the number of games being released on platforms such as Steam has stayed about the same in terms of number of games. What has been, you know, massively different is the difference in quality. You know, you had 5 years ago, you had like the top games and the bottom games were very different from each other. Now, the quality levels you can achieve with smaller teams and smaller budgets is, you know, very close to what you can achieve, you know, with bigger budgets. So what we're looking at right now is really optimization of teams and budgets, and understanding that, you know, games can be developed with more, you know, reasonable amounts of money. The second one is having committed teams that can commit to games for a long time, and this is what Teemu was just referring to earlier on. We need to have projects that can last 5, 6, 7, 10 years, because that's how much games can last in the market and how much they generate over time. Typically for us, a game that we launch, we use a premium plus DLC business model, and typically for us, the tip of the franchise sales in revenues is about year 5, year 6. So you realize that there's a long life to have to take care of. So stable teams that are able to sort of commit to projects, and technology is the third thing. Technology you can reuse and repurpose for other things over time. I guess these are the three things that we'd be looking at if we look at investing in teams right now.
I would add to that in a bit different way, because you a bit, I would say, mentioned that, Malcolm. What is the longevity of a game? When I'll speak for a second as a mother, I invested a lot of money in Minecraft, for example. Okay, if I can name names here. As a mother, everyone said like, no, give him like a limit time in front of screens. I never believed that, okay? But since he was now he's 22, yeah. But since he was 6, suddenly he started to learn alone how to code. And look at him today, like he built himself up just because he gets like this second brain or a third hand to just fly with it wherever you want. So the question is like, for how long? Or I would say for several years, we paid, this retainer to this game. But at some point we said, okay, enough. He doesn't need it, blah, blah, blah. But why I want to say it, because if I'm, as an investor hat, looking at company, for sure the technology, for sure the company and the team, it's all about this. But what about the community? Because community in game is so crucial, and how much the team and the game itself is, I would say, successfully bringing the community together, because this what makes this game life on shelves longer. This is how I see it. And on the same time, I was always challenged the team how much their go-to-market is global mindset and not a local one, which is very not obviously definitely in Germany or in the European. And another factor or important one is an exit strategy. Where are you taking it? And the art and the business not many times goes hand in hand in this stage. They are focused in the product, they're focused in, which is very important, yeah, on the design. But on the same time, where is it in 2 years? Where is it in 5 years? And who are, let's say, those top 5 names that you dream about selling the product to? Because then you have a lighthouse and you structure the product and the activity into an exit scenario.
Maybe to add to that, I think like this investment can be really divided in the early and late stage. Like in late stage, it's really very driven by the metrics, like what is your EBITDA multiples, and it's like not much different how you look at the general valuation of the company. Of course, the early stage is much more interesting, and at least that's something that I have much more in common with as well. And what I see is the following. Yeah, so it's like now the nightmare for example, in the mobile gaming, but I think it's the same in all types of gaming. Just in some types of gaming, there is not much data about. It's just the concentration. Yeah. So like in many categories, if you look at the data, like top 10 games are like responsible for like almost half of the revenue. Yeah. And a lot of those games exist even for like 5 years and more. Yeah. Which means that like it's very risky business, and very often the investors, how they look at that and how they try to avoid is that, okay, let's invest in the people who we know that they have the experience. like someone who was head of product at Playtika is creating the company with someone who was head of growth in Miniclip, with someone who was head of the data in Playrix and so on. And it's like in many different variations, yeah, because to minimize the risk. And I think as now that we have this strong revenue concentration, which means that on one side, even that case is not enough, because on one side, even if you have such team, you still don't have the guarantee that will be really next big thing. On the other hand, the professional knowledge about the mobile gaming is much more like common and much more spread out across the world versus like a few years ago it was just in a few markets like in Helsinki, maybe in Turkey and so on. That's much more like common now and much more spread out, which means that I think now what really matters is like your runway. Yeah? If you have some initial investment, for how long actually it will take you, how much time you have to really experiment, test new stuff, develop the thing, which means that I think it gives quite strong advantages, especially to the teams from emerging markets, where in general still, like even if you look at the markets like C region, like Poland, Serbia, Central Asia, LATAM, we saw that not long time ago, for example, in Turkey as well. I think those ecosystem in general, this runway just matters for longer. And of course, for a long time, there was really big difference between ecosystem, let's say in Finland and versus, for example, ecosystem in Poland or like even in Brazil, that the access to the capital was way better, for example, in Finland than in other countries. But of course, it's still the case, but the distance gets much smaller because of those cases. Even in Finland, it's not easy to get investment for the company, which means that together, I think overall this initial stage related to experimentation, it's way more important than in the past, and then it's getting more and more important to really rely not just on the experience of the specific people, but on the specific people. Is the person really like someone who wants to really push whatever is happening and really wants to get success? What is the ambition? Is the person really able to really bootstrap for a long time, or maybe really like cut the cost for longer time to really get to the stage when he can or she can show the metrics? I think that really made much more like the investing in gaming, not just based on the experience, but on the people's personality and the people's leadership as well. I mean, it was the case in the past, but I think now those topics matter much more than in the past.
Teemu, you want to add something?
Yeah, I'm just thinking it's been covered from many different angles. I guess to the sort of original, what would I be looking for, or what do I see sort of other VC funds looking for? So my context again is maybe on the very first pre-seed, seed area and capital investment. And I've like straight up, all the VCs that I've talked to recently just say that they do not believe that the old playbook works. So what they are looking for is, of course, all the things that have been mentioned about good team, good plan, able to execute, so on. But specifically, they do not invest, and I wouldn't invest into the traditional playbook of let's build the best possible team, then let's iterate quickly, try to find product market fit, and then hopefully something will work out and we can then scale a breakout success from out of that. It's failed too many times. So what specifically is being looked for at the moment is what would give you an unfair advantage on your go-to market. And that would be working with a smart publisher, for example, that is able to fine-tune your choices, or like working on a niche that you feel like you're able to advertise in, which is easy to say, almost impossible to execute on, or very specifically, not relying on your business plan, in your go-to-market plan, on things you cannot control. Because it seems like the world is moving so fast But anything that if you're relying on there being a specific amount of space in the App Store, in Steam, like relying that there's no other game at the same time that's hot, and your whole business is relying on that moment, then you're probably gonna fail, because there's AI and so on. There's gonna be so much content and sort of attention everywhere that there's no room for yourself. So I think what people are looking for is how to solve that problem, which incidentally is a go-to-market problem and a business problem, not a game development problem. So game developers are not very well equipped innately to solve that. So the team compositions are changing as well, I feel like. Sorry, multiple things there, but it's an interesting question.
I think you're making a good point, Teemu, that the market is moving so fast, and developing games takes what, 2, 3, 4 years. And by the time you release the game you thought about 3 years before, the market's changed dramatically, and you're in a place where you really don't know what to do now, because you've got something that's possibly not fitting anymore. So you've got to be clever in shortening that time, that development time, but also being clever, being flexible and adapting to market change over time.
Yeah, I would imagine that it's actually from a AAA, maybe it doesn't fit into this discussion, but I'd actually be really interested in talking about, say, AAA, and specifically aiming for things that people know for a fact doesn't work, and sort of proving them wrong. Case Baldur's Gate or something, where the common knowledge was that an RPG like that is not good business. Turns out it is. So that gives you room in the market.
I love the discussion. Really interesting ideas. Unfortunately, we have last 3 minutes. And I wanted to ask much more questions, especially about the crowdfunding and more like the retail investment part of the thing. But since we have only 3 minutes, I think it's better to shift and just let you guys say like one takeaway or one really like important lesson you learned from your investment journey, and something that you want the audience to take away from this panel. So we can start with you, Marko, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no problem. I think that what I learned over the last 25 years, and it's become even more important in the last few months, is that it's becoming even increasingly important to involve players early on. So making sure that you bring your community on with you over a long stretch of time, so that they are involved from the very beginning and they feel like part of the development project. I think that's a key aspect of making any successful game or investment in general.
And maybe I will take that, because I also mentioned community. So thank you, Marko, for this. But I think in general, it's like the changing in the player preference. You never know what is like the next things that they will search for and what is coming up, and as a developer, next trend. So as much as you are talking, and it's kind of like being an influencer I want to say it in a bad way, but take the good thing that they're always communicating with the community, to not fail in we have, as we mentioned, like long time of development, which means like if you started 3 years ago, maybe you launch it right now, and maybe what you're willing to launch it's already old news, and someone is doing this already better or smarter or in a different way. The other thing that I would love to highlight is the impact. Education. If there's any educational aspect, even if it's like stupid game, but the user is taking something else, and I will come back to my son because it was a big case study for me. I knew that it's working on the motoric, it's working on the building his own building, or starting to sell even his own island to a friend. It's built business development, education. If you focus on the educational part, like while they are in front of the screen or the app, they are learning something, put a lot of focus and also effort on the learning part.
Maybe I would add that really, I think it's really important to have this understanding of the balance between and trade-off between risk and potential. So like, the higher the potential, the higher risk coming from that. Yeah. So I think it should be really on one side, someone who is looking for investing, how how hard journey and with high potential he wants to take. And then on the other side, like looking for the investors who are actually sharing very similar view, because some of them prefer to have very high potential and very high doing something totally new someone never did, but knowing that it's really high risk associated with that. Or like there are some investors who just are really happy to have like 3x during the 3 or 5 years, and they just wants to have stable company, but without much risk associated with that.
All right, so super quickly, bootstrapping. That is such a life hack and very difficult to do. So if you're able to, as a team, bootstrap your way to a game, which would mean shipping relatively early and learning how to make it worth somebody's money, whether it's free to play or premium, and have an audience, which goes to the points you were saying earlier, then that sort of proves the case for investing more. So getting investment, and from an investor's point of view, it proves that it's worth investing in. It's just really difficult to do, but it's possible to do, and doesn't happen by accident. So I think about bootstrapping and how it applies.
Amazing. And I think this is something we can finish with. So thank you guys a lot for joining this panel. I think it was really interesting. It's a pity that we didn't have the full hour for this discussion, but maybe next time.
I'm going to jump in. Thank you all as well. Thank you so much. Yes, it's a topic hopefully we can continue some other time. So yes, it is now time to jump to yet another stream. So hopefully we'll be seeing you all in there. Yeah, and I'm going to then take a quick opportunity to do the pitch from the beginning again. A reminder that there will be another in-person conference in Istanbul in April 18th to the 19th. Thank you all.